heart of where innovation, money, and power collide in Silicon Valley and beyond. This is Bloomberg Technology with Caroline Hyde and Ed Ludlow.
Welcome to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Caroline Hyde in Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York. There is a lot to get to this hour. But let's start with some of the political turmoil in France. That no confidence vote that could topple the country's current government. Bloomberg's Caroline Conan is there for the latest in Paris. Debate finally getting underway, but for our global audience and our technology audience, Caroline, fill us in on what we expect in the next hour or so.
So the debate just started right here behind me inside the National Assembly. You've got Éric Coquerel at the moment speaking. He is the leader of the far left group in the National Assembly. And this is the group that is proposing this motion of no confidence in order to topple Michel Barnier's government and make Michel Barnier's government collapse. That vote could happen in the next couple of hours, and we're pretty sure of the outcome as we speak, given the National Rally, so the far-right party of Marine Le Pen, has said that they will back this motion of no confidence, even if it was presented by the far left. So the two extremes joining forces in order to overthrow this Barnier government.
We can see the impact on the euro. We've seen the impact on the price of French debt. But for those that are running businesses, for a technology audience that cares about the French technology startups, for example, what does a change or collapsing government mean for them?
Of course, the main question is, are we going to have a 2025 budget, and what is left in this budget? There will probably be some special laws in order to roll over the 2024 budget, but that means a lot of help and, for example, a reduction of contributions from companies in order to hire lowest income employees. These are not going to be automatically indexed on inflation, meaning that it's going to be harder, it's going to cost more for those companies to hire some of those employees. So technically, in the short term, it's a little unclear, but in the longer term, if there is still no budget over the next few weeks before the end of December, that will have a big impact on companies because we'll have this 2024 budget staying the same without any increase.
Caroline, we thank you so much for the latest from Paris. We'll come back to you on any of the breaking news. But first, let's get a check on the markets, because despite political turmoil worldwide, it feels often, the Nasdaq is at a record high, the S&P is at a record high, and we have tech to thank for it. In large part, we see Salesforce also at a record high, up 8.7% off the back of its earnings, really managing to pull out the power from its AI agent force focus. We're looking at Okta. This is an application software company, also rising at one point up more than 13%. We're now up 5% on the back of a beat and raise for its earnings after the bell yesterday. And Marvell Technology, it's now up some 20%, soaring it as well to a record high. This is the chip company, had better than expected results and stronger earnings forecast as well. What's notable is also Marvell's CEO, Matt Murphy, said on the call that he is committed to the company, despite being a potential contender, we understand, to lead Intel. And that is where we want to go next, because Intel's search for a new CEO is the focus for many at the moment. And is it going to be focusing heavily on outsiders? The chip maker is considering candidates such as Matt Murphy, but also the former Cadence Design Systems CEO, Lip Bhutan, who actually recently quit the board of Intel. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Ryan Gold for more. Ryan, is it surprising to see Intel not go to its own bench?
Caroline, I think it is. When you think this is the first time since 1968, when Intel was founded, that they will actually sort of think about looking outside. I think that kind of gets to the heart of what it means to be in semiconductors right now. Semiconductors takes a lot of expertise, it takes a lot of nous, and some of the decisions that were made, over the years, under Pat and even under Bob Swan, Krasnich before him, these are decisions that will pay if you make them right in 10 years' time. That's how long it takes to get some things over the line in semiconductors, and to go out and think about who your next CEO is, it's not an easy task.
Well, many are going to look that Pat Gelsinger didn't actually get that much time. He came from VMware EMC, but he was, in many ways, an Intel lifer. He'd started his career there. And what, therefore, is really the attractiveness of this role at the moment? Marvell, for example, Matt Murphy doing a great job showing the power of AI strategy. Is it not going to be that appetizing a role to be taking on right now?
I think it's a It could be a poison chalice. I think some people do view it as a poison chalice, just given the challenges. Because when you think about AMD, for instance, a big rival to Intel, it made the decision to go fabless years and years ago.
Yeah.
Intel is still, it's still a fab chip company.
They're trying to be more of a fab.
Exactly, and rival TSMC, and we all know how that went. So whoever comes in has a massive challenge on their hands. That said, though, the fact that we reported yesterday that Matt Murphy is being considered, Lip-Bu Tan being considered, let's remember that Lip-Bu is a big advocate for, making Intel more sort of industrially manufacturing sound. So, that could be interesting, but, there are many others too, because we're told, for instance, when we talk to sources, that anyone who puts their hand up who has a remote degree of expertise in semiconductors will likely be considered. And, I can tell you that Spencer Stewart, that's running the process to hire the new CEO right now, they're saying that we're probably going to look for 4 or 5 candidates and then shortlist to 1 to 2. Which
Do we get a time frame?
I think they're looking to this as soon as possible.
Ryan, keeping us up to speed. We thank you, Ryan Gould, there. Meanwhile, let's just get a deeper look at the chip space, tech market more broadly. Tony Wang of T. Rowe Price is with us, managing the Science and Technology Fund, more than $9 billion under management there. And basically, you look like you're in every chip name apart from Intel in many ways, Tony. Is that right? And how are you looking at the ecosystem and its strength?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When you look at our holdings, we currently are focused on the compute aspect of things. And so looking at AI, Nvidia is a big holding, as well as Marvell and Broadcom. My view is that the compute TAM is growing significantly as the foundational models are kind of growing exponentially every year. And so the chip companies that have the scale, the expertise to tape out the leading edge, are, I think, going to be advantageous in terms of capturing this compute TAM. So I think, I like the space long term, but, we are selective in our holdings here, specifically those 3 especially.
Well, let's talk about Marvell, for example. Would it be a worry if the leader did jump ship to Intel?
Well, I think Matt Murphy has created a ton of value over the years. You look at when they picked it up, it was in the kind of a sub $10 billion market cap. And he's, over the years, done a lot of great M&A and capital allocation, spun businesses off, acquired a world-class custom team that is right now delivering a lot of the AI custom compute chips for the likes of Amazon, for example. And so, I think that it would be a concern if he jumped ship. I do think it's he's put a lot of work into Marvell. He's got a great team there, and they're kind of firing on all cylinders coming out of the last few years. So, from my perspective, it seems like he does have a lot of good reasons to stay at Marvell, and so I'm taking his word, what he said last night, kind of at face value here.
Looking at your top 10 holdings, Marvell is one of them. At the end of October, is about 2% of the fund. The top holding is Nvidia, as you mentioned. Interestingly, we had AWS CEO Matt Garman on the show, on the Pro across our network yesterday, and we're going to be playing out a bit of that sound later. But Amazon is the best points contributor to the NASDAQ today. They had a whole raft of chip announcements. What does that mean for Nvidia? What does it mean in terms of their own customers building custom silicon?
Yeah, I don't think that story is anything new. It's just generally the evolution of compute. Essentially, you have the new workloads that need more general purpose NVIDIA chips. And then over time, as the workloads get bigger and they mature and stabilize, you kind of bring in the custom compute. And so, I think the two kind of coexist, and they have coexisted over the last decade. And so going forward, I think of them as kind of symbiotic relationship in some ways, and that it is just an evidence that the chip kind of TAM is increasing, and the compute TAM and the demands continue to increase because the workloads are getting so big. It makes sense to have a custom chip. But what's special is that previously, kind of 5-10 years ago, we thought AI would just be subject to just only identifying what's a cat and what's not a cat image. And so now it's transformed into something that no one could have thought about or predicted. So, I think that it's just, we've had this debate before of but I think what you've seen is that both kind of NVIDIA and the custom chip providers have done well as the TAM has increased.
I am not a cat. forever to be part of Internet's story. What then about Nvidia's valuation at these levels? You're talking about how finally we're getting the return on investment from an application layer perspective of AI. We're actually using it in our everyday life, our work life. Can Nvidia grow in terms of its own valuation, or have we priced it all in?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, $3.34 trillion, that's market cap right now, is pretty astounding. If you look at like the profitability and the free cash flow, I mean, it's kind of pretty reasonable, like 30, 35 times forward earnings. And so while the stock price has gone up a lot, I think that when you look at valuation, it's not extreme. It's not at 100 times earnings, which I think that says the market is saying there is a little bit of concern of like how sustainable the numbers are, whether profitability can continue to be at these levels. And so, I think the valuation at face value is actually relatively moderate, given its history and its growth.
It is extraordinary just to take a step back and think that on this day we're at a record high for the Nasdaq 100. Apple's at a record high. We've got Nvidia continuing to rise in terms of market cap. And then you have the Salesforce numbers and its own record high in terms of share price today. What do you make of their application of AI agent force and whether actually it's going to make them more profitable as well as getting revenue off the ground?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time in tech in that, AI could be this next productivity revolution. And so, kind of uncapping labor as we know it with digital agents and digital labor that essentially doesn't need to sleep, doesn't need to take breaks, operate 24/7, and can operate alongside humans. And so I think that's what's really exciting. And all these software companies are now kind of seeing the opportunity and going after it. And everyone wants to be the platform where you store your data, you operate. And so whether that's Microsoft, ServiceNow, Salesforce, I think it's a big opportunity. And so we've kind of seen, the first year of ChatGPT or two be dominated by the chip companies like Nvidia, dominating the infrastructure layer. And so now I think that we're seeing it on the app layer, which is really exciting because you need to see it in the app layer for kind of the chip companies to continue doing well. And, I think we are kind of seeing that in the last kind of earnings season.
Again, we've seen that shift, as you say, movement from all in on chips, then shifting into software. But boy, is it playing out in some of the valuations. I'm looking at Palantir trading at 180 times future earnings. That had been the darling of the AI story. Will other companies rip to get to those sorts of valuation levels? Or is Palantir sort of overdone as well? You talk about how we're at this crucial moment where AI is going to disrupt the workforce, but I feel that the market's been trying to price that in for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that not every company can be like what Palantir is doing. I think to do AI is really, really hard. And they've been the AI leader for the last decade. And I think of them bringing AI to the government and the enterprise. And so I think what's special about them is that they've got this like very centralized ontology for AI, and then they can kind of customize that for clients, and clients can build on that. So I think them as like a platform, and you think about what the United States government is trying to doing now is to be more efficient. And part of that is bringing AI and technology to automate things and to modernize people's processing and data. And so I don't think every company can be like Palantir. I think there's like some special ones in kind of the AI software kind of mid caps area, like, kind of like AppLovin, for example, or Axon. I like, where there's like specific vertical applications where AI can be applied and really drive a lot of automation and intelligence.
I love that you take us out to some of the different names as well. Tony Wang of T. Rowe Price. Brilliant to have you on. Thank you. Now, the latest on a tragic story out of New York City. Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Health Group's insurance division, was fatally shot in Manhattan this morning. He was shot in the chest outside the New York Hilton, Midtown, where the company was hosting an investor day, according to people familiar with the situation. Now, early reports suggest that the attack was targeted, according to a person familiar. The NYPD is expected to provide an update later this hour. We'll continue to bring you the latest on Bloomberg TV and radio throughout the day. last week, Bloomberg reported that the FTC is investigating into Microsoft, which is focusing on how the tech giant is bundling its Windows operating system with other software, as well as its dominance in cybersecurity. Now, reports from The Information are saying that the agency is asking about Microsoft's deal with OpenAI, which grants, of course, the cloud giant the exclusive right to run the startup models on the cloud servers, as well as a cut of the company's revenue. Antitrust lawyer David Balto joins us now. He previously worked as former policy director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition, someone who's well versed in how long these investigations could go on and with what right they take. So the way in which the FTC is pursuing Microsoft, does it seem significant to you?
I think it's very important. You know, the Microsoft case brought by the Department of Justice in the late 1990s was critical to the expansion and growth of the internet. Many of the things that we benefit from in competition on the internet are specifically because of that earlier case.
What's interesting is, of course, we've heard back from the Microsoft Deputy General Counsel, Rima Aleli, who put on LinkedIn saying on behalf of Microsoft, the FTC Inspector General, to investigate whether the FTC management improperly leaked confidential information about a potential antitrust investigation. How do you see these sorts of investigations evolving and becoming publicly known before, indeed, Microsoft has a chance to ultimately lead the way here?
I'm extraordinarily skeptical about whether or not the agency there would be some kind of leak from the agency. That's extraordinarily unusual. Third parties, however, who receive civil investigative demands can disclose whatever they want. And maybe this is a situation where one of those parties disclosed information to the press about the requests they had received from the FTC.
Of course, this is wide-ranging, it would seem. Bloomberg initially reporting on how it's going to be focusing on the way they intertwine their operating system and also their dominance in cybersecurity. Now the Information talking about the OpenAI Microsoft deal. I want you to just take a listen to a conversation I had with the AWS CEO yesterday, Matt Garman, talking about how he'd like to offer his own AWS clients access to OpenAI models, but can't at the moment. Just take a listen.
I believe that we would love OpenAI models inside of AWS. Absolutely. It's we listen to our customers, and if that's something that customers want, we're absolutely game. Obviously, with a partnership, it takes multiple sources, and there's probably some complexities in there, as you allude to. But I think in the fullness of time, it likely is the case.
So therein lies some of the issue that maybe the FTC is investigating, this relationship with OpenAI and Microsoft and whether it should be indeed broken open a little. It seems as though Matt Garman is positive that it will. Do you think that ultimately that will be done by self-regulation or actual FTC regulation?
No, I think the FTC is going to take a serious look at this relationship and the potential of that relationship to foreclose other forms of competition, other rivals. They're going to take a very close look at the nature of the agreement between OpenAI and Microsoft.
Do you think, though, that a lot of these cloud companies are having particular relationships with some of these very powerful generative AI models? Is that something that's generally going to be looked at across the board?
Yes, but it's always important to realize that Microsoft is dominant. They're dominant in cloud computing. They're dominant in certain software categories, vital software categories. And when a firm takes that dominance and extends that dominance to other product markets and forecloses competition in those markets, that violates the antitrust laws.
I feel, though, AWS would have something to say about Azure being all that dominant. They feel that they own a lot of the market. I'm sure that even other areas, Oracle feels that they got a key stake, Google as well. Can you have broader provision, less oligopoly-like cloud operations when this ultimately is incredibly expensive to offer?
I think that's one of the considerations that's kept in mind here. But we see many markets where there are not contractual arrangements that foreclose competition, where competition flourishes. And it's specifically those arrangements, like the arrangement between Microsoft and OpenAI, that will receive intense scrutiny. Especially because Microsoft is so dominant in cloud computing.
And dominant in cybersecurity, and in many ways, the reporting is such that this investigation started because some of the failings to do with cyber when it came to federal provision Is that what sparked all of this, David? How do you think this is going to weather a transition into a new administration?
First of all, that suggests one of the real advantages of having a Federal Trade Commission that deals with both consumer protection issues, the failure to provide cybersecurity adequately, and competition issues. I think this is an investigation that won't lose any steam in a new Trump administration. The kinds of legal issues here about when bundling is legal and illegal, I think there's a pretty strong consensus between Republican and Democratic antitrust enforcers. So I expect this investigation will go full throttle in the next administration.
David Balto, former policy director of the Bureau of Competition at the FTC. Thank you for your time. Now coming up, David Ellison is eyeing big changes to Paramount. More on that next. This is Bloomberg Technology. Time now for Talking Tech. First up, big changes may be coming to Paramount Global. According to sources, expected CEO David Ellison is exploring combining Paramount's TV units, investing more into streaming, and overhauling its top management. This all expected to come when its merger with Skydance is finalized next year. Plus, Meta is looking towards nuclear energy to fuel its AI ambitions. The parent company of Facebook is asking developers to submit proposals to deliver 1 to 4 gigawatts reactors starting in early 2030. For scale, 1 gigawatt of electricity is enough to power 750,000 typical homes. And billionaire Xavier Niel's Iliad is set to sell half of its data center business to French infrastructure fund Infravia Capital Partners. And the company is in exclusive talks to sell 50% stake in Iliad's OpCore for a total enterprise value of $904 million. Coming up, plenty more when it comes to data centers. My conversation with Amazon Web Services CEO Matt Garman on the company's major plans for AI. What's going to power it? That's next. This is Bloomberg Technology. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Caroline Hyde in New York. A quick check on these markets that are at new record highs. The Nasdaq, the S&P 500, Apple's at a record, Amazon's at a record. You've got across the board the key companies that are coming out with earnings also raising to new record highs. Marvell coming out with its numbers that beat and raised, and we see it at a record high, and so is Salesforce. So move on as the Nasdaq 100 goes up 0.9%. We in large part are being helped by the latest numbers out of CRM. Salesforce up 9%. Of course, its third quarter earnings looking strong. This is as AI agent force comes through with a bang. They're adding 1,000 people to go out and sell this in particular, but we're seeing 8% growth in their earnings as well in terms of revenue. Let's break it all down with Bloomberg Intelligence analyst Anurag Rana. And I mean, many were questioning the valuation, the share price of Salesforce going into this earnings report, but they managed to vindicate it.
Yeah, Caroline, if you look at the results, the margin number was above expectations. But other than that, everything else was generally in line to what people were expecting. But I think the real push is people are really buying Mark Benioff's agent force story and the potential for that down the road to add revenue. It's not going to add revenue for the next 12 months to a point where it's going to move the needle. But I think after that, it should start to add a good momentum to the overall revenue base.
Executive VP Mike Spencer saying it was, quote, a good number of the amount of deals that they signed with Agent Force. What do good numbers look like, do you think?
Yeah, on the call they said something about 200 deals or so, but at the same time, those 200 deals are not moving the needle when it comes to the bookings data. And we don't think that's going to happen. I think what you're seeing right now is a lot of value realization by the street that says, okay, at the end of the day, Salesforce is going to be a net beneficiary of Gen AI. I think this is the biggest discussion around almost the entire software space is what companies will benefit over the next 2 to 3 years or longer, and which one's going to be, not so much. And I think that's where Salesforce is. People are getting convinced that, they have their act together.
Because previously, people were worried about that act, right, Anurag? We were seeing a concern around Mark Benioff's desire to keep on doing M&A, perhaps not thinking about profitability. They made big layoffs. They've streamlined the business. But then they're still splashing $344 million on Zoom-in startup acquisition. Do you still like them adding on, tucking in where they can?
Yeah, the small acquisitions don't bother me one bit because that doesn't really impact the free cash flow. It's really the big ones that worry because that's going to change the momentum of the margin improvement. We just looked at it the day he announced that it's not going to be any more M&A, it's going to focus on margins. Just from that point till today, their margins have gone up by 10 percentage points. That's a very big number by any standard. And frankly speaking, when you look at a company like Microsoft or Oracle, Salesforce has a long way to go before it can reach those numbers. So there is still more potential for margin improvement. As long as they can get their organic growth rate up, people will like it.
Operating margin, I think, coming in at about 33.1%. Anurag, what of Microsoft? What of competitors in this agent offering and co-pilot offering that we hear so much about?
So when you look at Salesforce, two of their biggest products are Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. Service Cloud is a lot to depend on people who are looking at back office and customer support functions. This is where the agents are really going to benefit because think about it. If you are calling a human to get transaction done or taking care of your work, it's going to cost the company or the end market, whether it's an airline or a phone company, a lot of money. If you can get that done through an automated chatbot, that can actually execute the operation for you, that can change your phone plan without getting a human being involved, that can return your stuff and refund you the money without getting any human involved in it, that's a very big cost benefit for the end customer. And that's really where Salesforce is going right now.
Bloomberg Intelligence analyst Anurag Rana, thank you so much. Talking of application of AI, Amazon is trading at a record high today after its cloud division's annual reInvent conference. And it rolled out there yesterday powerful new chip arrays, a large language model to compete with leading rivals. And Matt Garman, AWS CEO, joined us after his stage appearance. And we started discussing the massive cluster of homegrown chips he says will quintuple the processing power for its AI partner, Anthropic. Take a listen.
That is the first innovation, is our Amazon-designed custom silicon that gives us really unparalleled performance for generative AI capabilities. And then we build these together with high-performance networking that we also build in-house. And then, of course, there'll be cooling and heating and power that we need to go build the data centers. But it really starts with that silicon down at the level, and we innovate on the entire stack of AI to make sure that we can control everything that goes into those clusters.
Can you talk to us a little bit, compare and contrast here? This is about less dependency on Nvidia GPUs to many ways, doing an alternative for your clients. What sort of cost saving will clients get? What sort of energy and efficiency will they get?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we like to think of it as a supplement to NVIDIA GPUs. NVIDIA has a fantastic product. That team has done an outstanding job executing. And we think that the vast majority of workloads are going to continue to run in NVIDIA processors for a long time. But customers want choice, and they want choice that can give them some lower cost options. And we think that for certain workloads, for many workloads, Trainium 2 can give customers 30 to 40% cost performance benefits over today's GPU-powered instances. And so we think that that's a huge win for customers, particularly as they're looking to lower the cost of generative AI workloads. But we'll be great partners with NVIDIA and continue to lean in on building great technologies together with them for a long time.
Trainium 2 available, Trainium 3 in the works, and all of this is, as NVIDIA at the moment, it's estimated, has about 95% market share. Do you agree with that sort of number they have, and what sort of area do you think that will come down to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably higher than that. I think the vast majority of workloads in generative AI today run on NVIDIA technology. And they've absolutely been the leaders in that space. But we do think we hear from customers that they want choice. And just with our processors, where we're tight partners with Intel and with AMD, but we decided to go build a general purpose processor called Graviton, and it's been hugely successful with our customers. But we also provide lots of Intel and lots of AMD processors in our cloud today, and those businesses continue to grow. So I expect that our usage of Nvidia will continue to grow from our customers, and that choice is really going to be powerful. And as you see this explosion of generative AI usage, I think there's going to be plenty of business for multiple different people to be successful.
A key partner is Intel. How concerned have you been about the change at the top?
Oh, it's okay. I wish Pat the best. You know, I know Pat, and he's been a good partner of ours. But we've been partners with Intel for a long time. It's been 18 years since we launched our first Intel instance when AWS and EC2 first launched, and we'll continue to be great partners with Intel, and they have a great technology team there. And we look forward to continuing to roll out the latest technologies from Intel for our customers to be able to use. And
you've been continuing to roll out, as you say, Nvidia offerings. Last time you were on, we were talking about Blackwell, of course. Many have been frustrated, perhaps by some slowness to market there. When do you anticipate that Blackwell will be unfolding, and how difficult has it been to ensure the supply side is there?
Well, they've obviously had some manufacturing things that they're going through, but we're very excited about it. I think the early returns and the early looks at Blackwell look fantastic. We expect almost a 2.5 times gain in the compute power that you get from Blackwell that we saw from H100s. And so I think it'll be a really material jump for customers once we get those out. And you know, I think those will be early next year. And we're excited about putting them in customers' hands. And we'll get them out there as soon as they're available.
Investors, though, they find it wild, this whole frenemy existence that's going on. You truly think that investors here think, oh, we want to see Nvidia dependency as well as AWS having its own offerings? Is that something you think everyone can swallow, or do you think ultimately there will be a broadening out other than just Nvidia winning all?
Look, I do think it's a partner. Like, if you think about AWS, we started from the very beginning thinking about this partnership mindset. And we built the entire business around AWS, thinking about how AWS would have services and our partners would have services, and that there's plenty of space for all of us to really grow and build our businesses. And that is true for software providers. It's true for service providers, and it's true for technology providers. And so I think that we've proven time and time again over the last 18 years that AWS can have products and our partners can have products. And then as we make them all available, that the whole pie gets bigger. And so I think there's plenty of opportunity for both. And so it really isn't. I think it makes for a fun narrative that it's either or. But we're great partners with NVIDIA. We will continue to be. And this is all about making the pie get bigger.
Fighting the frenemy discussion, my conversation with AWS CEO Matt Garman. Coming up, plenty more on AI and the investment opportunities. Lily Lyman, _VC managing partner, going to be joining us. This is Bloomberg Technology. Strategies of major multi-billion-dollar firms and small specialized funds are diverging the venture asset class heading into the new year. It's according to Lily Lyman, who is managing partner at _VC, joining us from Boston. You really think about early stage seed investing, and particularly when it comes to B2B software, Lily. I'm interested in this bifurcation that you're seeing. Talk us through the theory.
Yes, great. Well, Caroline, it's great to see you again. Thanks for having me. And as you said, I'm Lily Lyman. I am at _VC. We are a community-driven early stage venture firm based here in Boston.
Lily,
we invest.
I'm
Yes.
terribly sorry to interrupt, but we're going to have to go to some breaking news happening here in the New York City. The NYPD holding that news conference on the shooting death of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Listen in.
Approached from behind and fired several rounds, striking the victim at least once in the back and at least once in the right calf. Many people passed the suspect, but he appeared to wait for his intended target. The suspect fled, first on foot, then on an e-bike, and was last seen in Central Park on Center Drive early this morning. The victim was removed to Roosevelt Hospital, where he was pronounced. We've been in touch with his family, his friends, and his colleagues, and they are very much in our thoughts and prayers at this hour. The full investigative efforts of the New York City Police Department are well underway, and we will not rest until we identify and apprehend the shooter in this case. The women and men of the NYPD take enormous pride in the work that they do each day and each night to drive down crime and violence in our city. Right now, we are asking the public for your help. If you have any information about this case, call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. We have increased the reward in this case to $10,000. I want to be clear. At this time, every indication is that this was a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack. Millions of people will be enjoying the tree lighting tonight, among other holiday events, and the NYPD will be out there with them, keeping them safe. For some preliminary details about today's tragic incident, I pass it over to our Chief of Detectives, Chief Joe Kenny.
Thank you, Commissioner. The information I'm about to give you is preliminary, as our investigation is continuing. This morning at 6:46 a.m., patrol officers from Midtown North Precinct responded to a 911 call of a person shot in front of the Hilton Hotel located at 1335 Avenue of the Americas. This is between West 53rd Street and West 54th Street. At 6:48 a.m., officers arrive and find the victim, Brian R. Thompson, a 50-year-old male, on the sidewalk in front of the Hilton with gunshot wounds to his back and leg. Mr. Thompson was removed by EMS to Roosevelt Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 7:12 a.m. Mr. Thompson is the CEO of United Healthcare and resides in Minnesota. Detectives from Night Watch, Midtown North Detective Squad, and Manhattan South Homicide responded to the scene and began their investigation. What we know is that the shooter arrived at the location on foot about 5 minutes prior to the victim's arrival. He stands alongside the building line as numerous other people and pedestrians pass him by. From video, we see at 6:44 a.m., the victim is walking alone towards the Hilton after exiting his hotel across the street. We believe the victim was headed to the Hilton Hotel to attend the United Health Group Investors Conference that was scheduled to start at 8 a.m. The shooter appears to be a light-skinned male. He's wearing a light brown or cream-colored jacket, a black face mask, black and white sneakers, and a very distinctive gray backpack. The shooter steps onto the sidewalk from behind the car. He ignores numerous other pedestrians, approaches the victim from behind, and shoots him in the back. The shooter then walks toward the victim and continues to shoot. It appears that the gun malfunctions as he clears the jam and begins to fire again. The shooter then flees on foot northbound into an alleyway between 54th Street and 55th Street. Once at West 55th Street, the shooter continues to walk westbound on Avenue of the Americas, where he gets onto an electric e-city bike and rides northbound on the Avenue of Americas towards Central Park, where at 6:48 a.m. we have the shooter riding this bike into Central Park at Center Drive. At the scene, we recover 3 live 9mm rounds and 3 discharged 9mm shell casings. The motive for this murder currently is unknown, but based on the evidence we have so far, it does appear that the victim was specifically targeted, but at this point we do not know why. This does not appear to be a random act of violence. We are seeking information from the public to help identify the shooter. As the Commissioner said, we have upped the reward up to $10,000 for information. You're urged to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-577-TIPS. All information will be kept anonymous. Thank you very much.
All right, well, we're going to open up to a couple of questions. We're going to start off with Shimon, CNN.
So it's about an hour and 20 minutes before the start of the conference. Is there any indication that he was going to meet someone? Because it's pretty early. Is he on his way to meet someone there at the conference?
He leaves the hotel dressed like he's going to be attending the conference. We're working with his co-workers and other people that he planned on attending the conference with to get that information. But as of right now, he's in charge of the conference, so we believe he was getting there to help set up.
Do we know where that city bike is now? Does he dock it or does he keep riding it?
We're still tracking video. The last we see with him on that bike is in Central Park.
Is there a way to track that bike?
There are GPSs on those bikes. We'll be working with the company.
All right, we're going to move over. We're going to go NJ Birkin.
Thank you. Chief, were any words exchanged? If so, what were the words? And I'm told a cell phone was recovered in an alleyway on his escape route. Does that appear to be connected to the suspect?
We're working through that cell phone. Obviously, we'll be processing it forensically. And as far as words being exchanged, we do not have audio of the incident. We only have the regular video.
But nothing from witnesses?
Nothing. Well, there was one witness standing right next to the victim when he was shot. We're still trying to identify that victim. Excuse me, that witness.
We're going to go over to Aaron Katersky.
Thank you. Chief, was he checked into the hotel across the street alone? Was he in the city alone? Was he accompanied by anybody? Did he have any known enemies or anyone that you've been able to find so far?
Like I said, we're reaching out to law enforcement in Minnesota, and we're also interviewing his co-workers and family members to see if there have been any specific threats against him in the past. As far as who was he in the hotel with, we're doing a search warrant in his hotel room right now. That might lead us, give us some more information.
All right, we're going to go over to Dean Moses.
A couple of questions. One, based on the surveillance you've seen of this individual, do you feel like he's professional? You mentioned that he did the bullet spell. Do you feel like this was a professional individual who took this man's life? And also, will it affect in any way the tree lighting tonight?
I'll answer the part about whether or not he's a professional. That, you know, we have no way of knowing that. From watching the video, it does seem that he's proficient in the use of firearms, as he was able to clear the malfunctions pretty quickly. But as far as the tree lighting, I'll leave that to Chief Magic.
Yes. Good morning, Dean. Just really quick, this incident will not affect the tree lighting. The tree lighting is slated to start at 7 p.m. The show, the actual lighting of the tree will be close to 10 o'clock, actually 9:55 p.m. We will have a massive police presence out there around Rockefeller Center from 52nd Street all the way down to 47th Street. We will have plainclothes out there, a plainclothes detail out there. We will have our CRC assets, our Strategic Response Group assets. We will have our Intel division out there. A lot of assets out there to make sure people can come out and have a good time. And we're going to have additional police officers in the subways as well, so people can take mass transit to make it easier to travel into the city and enjoy the tree. This is a terrible event, but we're going to go on, and people are going to enjoy the tree lighting tonight.
All right, we're going to move over to Marsha Kramer.
I wonder if you could tell me, the mayor said that there was evidence recovered at the scene that would indicate that this was not a random event. I wonder if you could tell me what that evidence was. And by looking at the gun, it appears that there's a silencer on the gun. Was there a silencer on the gun? And does this indicate not only that it was premeditated, but this is somebody who knew his way around guns and might have been a professional?
Once again, we won't know that until we complete our investigation and identify the shooter or recover that firearm. You know, you see a glimpse of the gun in video, so we're not able to make a determination on whether or not a silencer was used on that quick glimpse of video. We can't tell from that little glimpse of video. I'm not going to commit to saying that at this time. That would be part of our investigation.
And what evidence did you
There's a cell phone recovered in the alleyway, and once again, we will process that forensically and see if it comes back to this shooting.
So you don't think that the cell phone was part of Brian Thompson's, was on
Once again, this investigation is less than 5 hours old. That will be part of our investigation.
All right, we're going to move on to Joe Marino, New York Post.
Chief, do we know when Thompson arrived in New York City? My understanding is he was staying close by to the Hilton, but not at the Hilton. And has anything in the reverse video canvas indicated that these two individuals crossed paths at all?
As of right now, based on the current video that we do have, it doesn't appear that they crossed paths, and he arrived in New York on Monday.
All right, we're going to take 2 or 3 more. We're going to go Rocco, Daily News.
Chief, did he typically travel with a security detail? And even though it's early, is there anything to indicate that there had been issues with, let's say, a patient who was denied coverage, either back in Minnesota or more recently, you know, someone who lives here?
From speaking to other employees that traveled with him to New York, it doesn't seem that he had a security detail. He left the hotel by himself, was walking, didn't seem like he had any issues at all. So I don't think he did not have a security detail.
And as far as denied coverage, I know that's typically an issue with these major companies. Any reason to believe he had been the subject of a threat?
Once again, we're looking at everything. We're looking at his social media. We are interviewing employees. We are interviewing family members. We will be speaking to law enforcement in Minnesota.
We're going to do 2 more before we wrap up. Shayna?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask if any cursory look at any social media, whether it's the company, whether it's his personal social media, his family's, is there anything obvious that sticks out at this early stage in the investigation?
We have not uncovered anything at this time. The investigation is still too early.
We're going to go last question over here with Jake.
How's it going? You know, with the suspect still at large, last seen in Central Park, are you urging New Yorkers to avoid the park? Is the NYPD deploying its drones? I know they recently started doing that in the park. And then also I was wondering, is there any indication when he gets this city bike that he's a city bike member, It's like sometimes if you're not a member, you can pay to use it. I don't know if you're able to tell on surveillance.
City, but the chief of detectives will answer the part about the city bike. But in terms of we're encouraging New Yorkers to go about their daily lives and their daily business, but to be alert. We put the picture out. You're putting the picture out. We want people to take a look. If they see anything suspicious, if they hear anything suspicious, we ask them to call 911, reach out to our detectives. With an incident like this, of course, we put a heavy deployment into Manhattan. We put additional resources out. We have the drones up. We have aviation out. We have K-9 out. When an incident like this happens, we don't spare any expense. We put all of our resources out there to support the chief of detectives' mission and to keep New Yorkers safe. So we will have a massive presence out there around the tree lighting, but throughout Manhattan as well until more information develops and we're able to support the chief of detectives in what he needs to make a quick arrest.
As far as where he got the city bike, we're still working that through. Like I said, we're pulling video from numerous locations, numerous sources, and we have him on our timeline walking, and what we're very fortunate is he has that very distinctive gray backpack on. So we see him on one video clip walking, and then another source of video, him riding that bike. So we don't have video or witness confirmation on how he obtained that bike. A cell phone was recovered. We will confirm that later on down if we, do our forensic examination.
Thank you, everyone. This concludes our press conference. Thank you for your time and attention.
That was an update from the New York City Police Department on the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare here in Manhattan. You were hearing from the Chief of Detectives, Joe Kenny, alongside, of course, Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry and the Commissioner, New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. All of this giving the update that indeed the New York PD is reiterating that Thompson's shooting was premeditated. They're not sure why Thompson was targeted in particular. They're working on tracking the location of the city bike that the perpetrator has been seen riding, last seen in Central Park. The shooting will not impact the Rockefeller Center tree lighting, and you heard time and time again the comments coming to try and make sure that everyone feels safe and secure as they do indeed attend that using mass transit and the amount of police officers that will be throughout the subways and on the streets of New York following this shooting. New York PD also saying that they recovered a cell phone from a nearby alleyway, and they will be doing some forensic testing on that. But ultimately, they're saying their shooting of Thompson was a targeted incident. United Health Group itself has said that they're working closely with the NYPD, and all of this a tragic circumstance around Brian Thompson, a long-time executive of United Health Group. Of course, he was focusing on the insurance part of the business, fatally shot in Midtown Manhattan early Wednesday morning around 6:40 a.m. is what the NYPD was telling us. 50 years old, and he was shot outside the New York Hilton Midtown. That was indeed the company was hosting its Investor Day, according to a person familiar with the matter. Now, the early reports, as we've said, and the NYPD has just corroborated that this was indeed a targeted attack with 2 shots to the back and indeed 1 to the leg. Upon Thompson's arrival, the alleged attacker was waiting for him and shot the executive from about 20 feet away before fleeing on foot and then mounting a city bike. The alleged shooter was still at large, and as you heard there is a $10,000 reward to find him. Thompson then had a gunshot wound to the chest. He was taken to the Mount Sinai West in a critical condition where he was pronounced dead. The NYPD has said there's no arrests this time. They're continuing on this active investigation, as we did indeed hear from NY Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. For more, follow Bloomberg throughout the day on the latest on the passing of Brian Thompson, United Healthcare CEO. This is Bloomberg.